Hey guys, as you can see behind me, I have my BootStrap Farmer seed starting kit all fired up. There's little tags in there. I'll give you a closer look. I started my peppers and eggplants for the year. And for those of you who are new here, this is Aki, also known as Mr. Big Mouth. It's easier for me to attempt to speak to you while I'm in the house if he's on my shoulder. Otherwise, he'll insert himself into the conversation from far away. And I assure you, if you have never heard Aki screaming, it's something you will not miss if you never do. Anyway, so yeah, it's time to think about what peppers you're going to start this year. Now, traditionally, this is really a time where if you're just getting into gardening, you're going to want to understand what your zone is. We're here in northwestern Burlington County, New Jersey, which is zone 7A. And in 7A, our last frost date, which is where your zones come in at, is your first and last frost date. So when we're planting out in the spring, we're worried about the last frost date. For us, it's around Mother's Day. Every now and then it'll warm up before that and we think it's safe enough to put our stuff out. But when it comes to peppers in particular, you really don't want to put them out before Mother's Day. Now, sometimes we can put our tomatoes out. This year, I won't be doing that so early either. It really doesn't make that much of a difference to wait another week. Now, but it's still important as to when you actually start your seedlings in advance. So I like to give my peppers and eggplants at least 10 weeks to get started, which means here we are, late February, I have seedlings in the windowsill. A few things that are important, a few tips for those of you who don't know. I'll attach a few videos for you. Last year was our most successful pepper year ever. We had the most gigantic bell peppers, tons of shishito peppers, all sorts of colorful yellow, orange, red, green, you name it. So I wanted to give you a few tips on how I got so successful with that. However, disclaimer. Things come in waves sometimes, and it seemed like everyone I talked to last year had a really great pepper year, and they had a terrible tomato year. Sometimes none of us can grow cucumbers, and sometimes we can. It's just a really strange thing. It kind of depends on what bugs are really predominant for the year, what's happening with rain, heat, drought, things like that. So hopefully this year we'll achieve another great pepper year utilizing the rules that I put in place last year. I'll get into that with you in a few minutes, but for now I want to show you what my favorite pepper and eggplant varieties are, and they are tried and true, proven winners for me in zone 7A, northwestern Burlington County, New Jersey. So let's have a look at our pepper varieties. The Goon Squad is in the background, you guys. We have 3 parrots for those of you who don't know us. So anyway, I'm going to get started with my list. One of the first bell peppers that I want to show you, if you're looking for a large bell pepper that grows into a yellow pepper. Most of these peppers start off green and then they'll change into whatever color you may see on the package. This is California Golden Wonder. This particular package is from MI Gardener, which I got in a sale. I used to grow them from the farm stand, and they produce the most wonderful bell peppers. They do turn yellow, and you don't really have to leave them on the bush for the full time if you're waiting for them to turn yellow before you harvest them. Once you see a little bit of a suggestion that the color is changing, you can harvest it off, let it sit out on the counter, and it will change. I recommend California Golden Wonder. Some places it doesn't grow well, but it does great for us here in New Jersey. The next yellow pepper is also from MI Gardener, which I took a chance on. Last year was the first time I grew it, and I grabbed it for $1 in one of his sales. This yellow pepper, again, starts off green, but grows into a gigantic, lighter pepper than the California Golden Wonder turns to. That's a little bit of a different shape. I'm sorry, are you insulted? He says, you have to see me. We can't look at peppers. This was such a surprise. One of the strange things about it is the peppers themselves had different shapes, and it may have been a male-female thing. Sometimes I think with bell peppers, the male has 4 bottom lobes and the female has 3. So that could have been what was happening with the shape of these, but This was absolutely incredible and delicious. Not as thick of a wall as the California Golden Wonder, but still a thick-walled, true bell pepper. The next bell pepper from M.I. Gardener was Coral Bell. And this, again, starts off green, a little bit smaller than the Sunbright, but this did change to this beautiful orange color. It was very, very successful. There's some things I want to go over with you as I glance at the back of the packaging that talks about germination temperatures and things like that, and when you can expect maturity. So I'm glad I'm looking at that. This is maturity 75 days until you get peppers. Same thing with the Sunbright and California Golden Wonder, 75 days. I traditionally in this climate see peppers sometimes within 75 days. Often it's not until 90 days that I'm actually harvesting peppers. So now another color that I'm going to move into is a lilac bell. This is an older pack of seeds. And I'm trying that. This isn't really a tried and true for me, but because I'm growing it, I wanted to disclose that to you for 2025. The first year I grew these, they did produce actual lilac colored peppers. They were absolutely beautiful, but they were very, very small, and they don't stay purple after you cook them. I had a little bit of a germination problem with them the last few years, and they didn't really do well, so I kind of nixed it from the growing scheme, but this year it's back in my plot plans one last time, and I'm going to see how it does. You know, this was one of the first packs of seeds that I ever bought from Baker Creek, so I wanted to try something different, so we'll see how it does this year. Okay, now 2 peppers that I'm growing that I don't have pictures of, but I'll see if we can insert a link to one of our videos where we show it to you, or maybe we have some video stills that we can grab. This little golden packet is from Park Seed. This is the Parks Whopper bell pepper. Absolutely incredible. I highly encourage you, let's see if we can get a closer look. I highly encourage, if you're looking for an incredible traditional green bell pepper, this is the one for me. It produced a prolific amount of bell peppers. The shrub was so heavy, I had to continue to tie it off to supports and make sure that it had a center stake and a cage, as well as some shade cloth, which I'm going to get into with you in a moment. But yeah, Parks Whopper, they do have, Park Seeds does have a little bit, they're more expensive. They have some shipping charges, but they do run sales. So you'll want to sign up for parkseed.com, sign up for their email alerts, and keep an eye out for this. You still have time. If you are within the 10 weeks from sowing your seeds, I really should have probably made this video for you 2 weeks ago to let you know what I was planting, but they say start your peppers indoors 8 to 10 weeks before your last frost date. So depending on where you live, you may have time. I'm certain people in the south have already started their peppers, and people in the north are just getting ready to. Now, here is a picture. I'm just going to show you a random envelope because these are seeds that I harvested many years ago. This is a Keystone resistant pepper. I've seen this at farm stands, and I think at some point I may have seen it at like Lowe's or Home Depot from Bonnie Seeds. This is another incredible bell pepper that is supposed to be more disease resistant, thick-walled, big, giant pepper that turns red, and as it's changing over, it gets a beautiful red, deep, rusty red striation on it. Incredible pepper. It's just very, very prone to scorch. So if you're going to grow these larger, thick-walled bell peppers, again, I'm going to want to talk to you about shade cloth. It's time to think about those things. The next pepper that I'll be showing you today is the most incredible Jimmy Nardello. And I've seen a lot of people ask, what is so wonderful about this pepper? Well, once you've tasted a Jimmy Nardello, you're never going to skip this in your garden. It is considered an Italian frying pepper or a roasting pepper, or you can chop it up and put it in salad. You can marinate it, you can pickle it, you can do so many things with it. But once it turns red, it takes on this delicious fire-grilled flavor, even if it's not fire-grilled. I'll cook it on the stovetop mixed in with my shishitos, jalapenos, and banana peppers, and it is so incredible. Added in a roasting dish with other peppers in the oven. the flavor is so intense. They're fairly easy to grow. They do get a little bit of scorch. They like shade in the afternoon, but this is a wonderful pepper. Now you can get this from most vendors. I like growing it from Botanical Interest. I think that there were some issues with getting it from M.I. Gardner, and I don't remember if I've ever seen it at Baker Creek. I've been buying it every year from Botanical Interest. So yeah, this is one that I'll never miss. In the same family, Giant Marconi, I got this one from Baker Creek, or from M.I. Gardner. For a while, I could not find this seed. It seemed like it was out of stock in most places, but check M.I. Gardner if you're looking for this. This is another frying, roasting type Italian pepper. Starts off with a long green pepper, thinner walls than a bell pepper, but thicker than the Jimmy Nardello. You could stuff these if you wanted to, but not with anything too heavy. They're not really intended for that. These guys are mostly intended for chopping or slicing or cutting them in half and putting them in a pan, or roasting them or putting them on the grill. Once they turn red, and they do turn red, they are the most delicious pepper. Every year, Marconi's is one of our favorites. Here we have another Italian level frying pepper, which is the Cubanelle or the Cubanea. This beautiful pepper starts off a chartreuse green, and then when it starts to mature on the vine, it'll get some beautiful red and gold striation to it, and then it becomes like this beautiful rich red orange. And the redder it is, the more delicious it is when you cook it up. This doesn't not have to be eaten cooked. You can chop it up again and pickle it, add it to salads raw, add it to like a salsa, many things. This is fairly easy to grow. It does get a little bit of scorch, so this is one that would go in your shade cloth area, but I highly recommend this one. Now, the jalapeno pepper. This tastes just like a jalapeno, but without the heat. I've been growing this for years now. This is a prolific grower here. I usually plant 12 of these. Oh my goodness, because they freeze so well. Every day I go out into the garden while these are growing, and I pull handfuls of them, and I pan sear them with my shishito peppers and a mix of whatever other peppers I'm harvesting for that day. And whatever overage I have, I take the stem off, and if I'm going to take the seeds out, I do that. I wash them, make sure they're dry, and then I just throw them in a freezer bag, and they're good for many months. So this is one I highly recommend if you're looking for that traditional jalapeno flavor, but with no heat. The sweet banana pepper, I just started growing this last year, and I know it's not a new variety. I don't know why I wasn't growing it before. Again, prolific grower, very versatile, raw, cooked, pan-seared, pickled banana peppers. A lot of people do that. Delicious on sandwiches and in salads. This is an easy grower, and these are all within the same time frame of 8 to 10 weeks. Every one of these peppers is 8 to 10 weeks. And I'll be talking to you about germination time and temperature and all of those things. So I think that was all of the larger peppers that I'm growing. So now I'm going to show you some of my graduating into levels of heat. Here is the shishito pepper I'm growing this year because it was on sale with the M.I. Gardner sale. This pepper grew a little bit different. It was almost like it was a shishito pepper, but it really wasn't. It was much larger last year. Had the same flavor for the most part. I don't know, this could have been part of Peppergate, and it may have been a seed from a pepperoncini maybe, I don't know. But really you can get this seed from almost any place now. Definitely Baker Creek heirloom seeds, M.I. Gardner. Not sure if I've seen it from Botanical Interest, but they probably do have it. This is excellent. Again, I add this into the pan with the jalapenos and whatever else I'm cooking up, and this slightly blackened, pan seared, a little bit of salt and pepper. You could make a sauce for it, but it really doesn't need it. It is so good served with fresh pasta or just on the side with salad or with some potatoes and rice. I mean, you can do anything with this. Freezes so well. Again, I add these to the bags with the jalapenos. They freeze well for many months. I think this is the only new pepper variety I'm adding this year, which is a basic cayenne pepper that I grabbed from Ferry and Morse. I'm adding these because this is the type of pepper that you can string and let dry, and you can grind it down for like pepper flake seeds, or pepper flakes, you know, to put like red pepper flakes in a pasta, or if you like sprinkle it on a roasted dish. So we'll have to see how well these do. I'm only growing, I think, 1 or 2 of them. And I need to see just exactly what they're going to produce, because I don't want to be inundated with hot peppers like I was last year with this specific pepper that I'll tell you about at the end. But this is a fairly traditional, long, thin cayenne, and we'll see how this one does. Last year, for the first time, I grew pepperoncini with the intent to pickle them in 4% vinegar, so that I could keep them in the refrigerator and serve them on the side with salad. But they were so delicious fresh, and they were so delicious pan-seared with everything else, that I never bothered pickling them. I just threw them in the frying pan with my shishitos and my nadapenos and enjoyed them thoroughly. This plant grew really, really well for us last year, and it did well in full sun. It didn't require any shade. It did want staking and caging though, so that's something to keep in mind. I really like the versatility of this pepper. Now this year I might actually pickle some, just to experience a different level of flavor. And again, that's the point, and whether you pickle, cook, serve raw, is the flavors of peppers do different things when you treat them differently. The last pepper I'm going to show you today is the Megatron jalapeno, which I grew for the first time last year. And I will tell you, these are mega-sized jalapeno peppers. They were gigantic. And they had a very thick wall, and they would be perfect for stuffing. Again, I don't really take the time to stuff anything or make any kind of jalapeno poppers. I wanted them for the heat, because I stopped growing jalapenos because there were just too many and they were too hot. This pepper I anticipated was going to be extraordinarily hot on the Scoville scale. When I touched it, it burned my fingers instantly without cutting into it even. I wasn't even exposed to the seeds. It was just the oils. However, when I served it up, it didn't present as hot for some reason after it was cooked up. I think I may have added 1 or 2 to a guacamole at some point over the year. And Farmer John, he likes hot peppers, so he didn't find any problem with the heat. They were just on the edge of being too hot for me, but not as hot as I expected. I'm going to grow 1 plant this year just to have for guacamole and maybe some other things, since I do have other hot peppers from last year that are still in the freezer. So now the next thing that I'm going to show you here is my eggplant collection. These guys have produced really well for us over the past several years. The first one I'm going to show you is the Rosita eggplant from Baker Creek. Now this is an eggplant cultivar that was developed in Puerto Rico, and it's you don't want to let this eggplant get too big, because it gets too seedy, and then the color starts to change and it starts to bleach out or get really, really pale. When you see it at this beautiful color here, at about, I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 inches long, John loves this eggplant roasted up, and I like to, what I'll do is I'll put salt on it, and I'll let it seep out all of its, I forget the word that it's called. There's a specific word, brining. I'll put salt on it, let it sweat. You pat down the sweat, and then you season it with whatever you're going to season it with, and you throw it in the oven for a little while and oven roast it. Absolutely delicious. When it gets big and it starts to bleach out, the seeds are tough, its flesh gets tough, and it's not that good. It's at its most delicious flavor and texture when it's at its peak color. A new eggplant that I tried last year from M.I. Gardner was Listada de Gandia. John loved this one as well. This is also a more petite variety that you'll notice it starts to get paler and paler. When it starts to get pale, you want to make sure you harvest it off. And the more you harvest, the more will grow. It starts off as a beautiful purple flower, as well as all of these eggplants that I'm going to show you. And then it will start to produce the fruit from the purple flower. So you'll know you're about to get your first fruits when you see this beautiful big purple flower appear. John's absolute all-time favorite eggplant is the Casper. And even though I'm not an eggplant fan, this is one that I actually like oven roasted with just salt and pepper and nothing else. When it's done cooking, it produces a very creamy texture. You don't really even have to cut it. You can just scrape it out, and it takes on a very mushroomy flavor. I've been growing this for at least 4 seasons now, I want to say. It's a big hit. It's been a big hit with everyone I've shared it with. It grows fairly easy. It lasts the longest in the garden until frost, and I really, out of all of them, I will recommend this one. Now, a new variety that I'm trying this year from Botanical Interest is the Black Beauty, because this looks more like a very traditional aubergine. And so I'm not really sure what to expect from it. They say it's 80 days after transplanting, so we'll see. It cracks me up because every year, one of the things that we like to have together is peppers, eggplant, and zucchini. But getting zucchini still available when your eggplants are at their peak is very, very difficult, because we start our zucchini early in the year, and then the squash vine borers have their way with them and the plants start to die down. And at the end of the season is when the eggplants are really producing in August, after the flea beetles have had their way with them, and they just really, really like the heat. So trying to find a bigger eggplant that's 80 days from transplanting, we'll see what happens. But you can find this one at Botanical Interest. The last one I'm going to show you is a tried and true, but I stopped growing it for a while because I went to the bigger varieties, and we were growing these before we basically replotted our garden, and I was growing them too close together. Here's a tip for you. Eggplants, while they don't really want to be planted too far apart because they do like a little shade, eggplants do suffer from scorch. They need circulation and ventilation. Eggplants attract bugs like the Colorado potato beetle and flea beetles. The flea beetles destroy your leaves, and the Colorado potato beetle will bore in and create holes in it. So you want to make sure that you have good ventilation, and you're going to want to get in there. The Colorado potato beetle, you're going to want to hand pick off and drop into the cup of death. I can attach the cup of death video for you. The flea beetles, there's really not a lot you can do about them, you guys, except for maybe spray under the leaves with neem oil. That did help last year. So that was basically what made me stop growing this. But from a flavor perspective and a variety, the Nagasaki Long from Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds, this was very delicious. John really loved eating this eggplant. So I'm hoping this year to get some of these growing again, and hopefully we won't have as many diseases as we did in the last few years that affected these. So listen, with all of these things, I've been talking to you about shade cloth, and I'll attach our favorite shade cloth in the description below that we get from Amazon. Last year, the shade cloth was the game changer for us. In years prior to that, we've suffered from so much sun scorch on the big thick-walled peppers and different bugs. And once a pepper starts to get sick, you can struggle to get it back. The shade cloth had some magic in our yard, which is now becoming a very, very hot microclimate. It seems like as the seasons go on, we're struggling more and more with heat and drought, followed by episodes of tremendous rain that really make everything struggle. Sorry for that little interruption. I had to put Mr. Big Mouth back, and then the other Mr. Big Mouth started, and we had a little bit of a kerfluffle in the aviary. Anyway, what I was trying to drive home is that it's important when you're trying to grow all of these new varieties in your yard and in a microclimate, and as the seasons are changing, we're going through different climate change issues, you guys. You'll see what happens, how peppers and tomatoes are affected by the difference between too much rain, not enough rain, seasons of hot, fierce drought, with the sun. I mean, it just has been crazy. Then we're dealing with fires every year now, where the smoke is basically causing a weird cast in the air. It's affecting how everything grows. The best thing you can do is be prepared with your growing supplies. Now, some people have ideal gardening conditions. They have the perfect amount of sun, the perfect amount of shade. For those of us who are trying to create an environment that doesn't really exist, these are some of the struggles that you're going to come across. So we invested in a lot of shade cloth two different varieties. I'll attach the shade cloth video for you. It will be easier for us to explain it to you that way because we went into great detail. So you can watch the shade cloth video, but we'll attach the product link to the description below. It's one of the things that I highly recommend. And as a matter of fact, this year we're planning on creating a shaded area to dapple light across our tomatoes this year. So that's going to be a new adventure that we'll talk about in the future. Arm yourself with some sort of neem oil for things like eggplant. And even with some of the peppers, I don't like spraying neem oil on the peppers because neem oil can make things burn. The neem oil is only intended for the leaf and not the fruit. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. Now, as far as germination, when to plant things out, truly follow all of the instructions on the back of packets. There is, incredible information on the back of these, and they will tell you when you're starting your seedlings for peppers and eggplants, it likes warm soil. So make sure your seed starting soil has been slightly warmed. It likes somewhere between 70 and 90 degrees to germinate. But if you have a heat mat that's not a temperature adjustable type, you really can overheat your container. So what I like to do is I keep my peppers and eggplant seedlings in a warm spot where the heat dome, which is very, very important that you have a heat dome when you're starting something like this, or a plastic cover that goes over your seedlings. It creates a little microclimate, so 75 is a good temperature. Anything 85, 90, if it's in too much heat for too long, it's going to affect your soil and it will start to build up some mold, some mildew. You might activate some fungus gnats. So finding that 75 to 90 degree range to get your seeds started is something that I don't want you to overthink, but it's something that I want you to keep in mind. Once your peppers start to sprout, you have to make sure you take your heat dome off. You have to make sure that at that point you're providing light to your peppers and your eggplants and whatever it is that you're growing. Once the seed has emerged, it needs the light. Now, if you don't have light available right away, when you are just starting to germinate them, this is not the type of seed that requires light to germinate. Certain flowers and lettuces and things that are more of a surface sown seed will tell you it needs light to germinate. Peppers and eggplants are okay until they actually emerge. Once you see emergence, that's when you need to give them air circulation, and you want to have direct light on them within several inches, maybe 4 to 6 inches of right above your seedlings to give them photosynthesis. Now, as they start to grow and get bigger and thirstier and you upplot, keeping them under grow lights can be tricky because you can scorch your leaves. You'll learn all of these things as you go, but what's most important is I want you to try. These supplies can get expensive, so if all you have is a sunny windowsill, that's all I had for many, many years, and things grew. It wasn't until last year that we actually started with shelving and hanging lights and advanced growing systems. Now, one of the things that has really helped me move further along in starting my seedlings is the BootStrap Farmer Supply Kit, and I'll attach a link for that video below in the description. It comes with all of your air pruning cells, which is great. You get 72 cells. They're all in the little 6-packs, just like you might be used to seeing elsewhere. But the sides and the bottom are much more ventilated for air pruning. It creates a much better root system for your seedling. The plastic that they use seems almost indestructible. It's much easier to carry it. They don't tip and bend and flip when you're trying to move things around. And this particular kit that I bought, again, I'll go over that in the video that I'll attach, comes with a wonderful heat dome that has little ventilation slots on the top that lets you say, okay, half of my seedlings have germinated, but the other half hasn't. So now I'm going to add a little bit of air to them. So the dial on the top allows you to control airflow into your dome. But the heat dome was a game changer for me. Keeps everything moist, builds up a nice little micro sweat in there, and you can see, when it's getting hot. And if it sweats too much, that's the indicator to me that it's too hot in there. So again, for years, I just kept that in a sunny windowsill and everything worked. Now I have grow lights where I've advanced everything. One of the future videos that we'll be doing for you will show you what our rack system looks like and just how many plants we're growing, because yesterday I started 72 seedlings in the first BootStrap farmer load, on the first load of peppers and eggplants inside of the BootStrap farmer seed starting kit. So 72 is just the beginning. There will be way more tomatoes and tons of flowers, and getting ready to start so many things. So stay tuned for all that, you guys. And if you have any questions about any of these varieties that I've just shown you as far as peppers and eggplants, just write a comment below. We get back to everybody, and we're really happy and excited to talk to you about this. Now listen, real quick. If you buy the seed starting kits, and maybe you're not growing 72 peppers in your first tray, it's okay if you only use a few and you're utilizing your dome and you have some empty space in there. It's okay. But the last thing you want to do is grow tomatoes and peppers and eggplants under the same heat dome, because they require different germination times and you may become frustrated by that. So when you're starting your little segregated seedlings, make sure that you know what your germination time is. Like peppers, don't get too impatient with them, because they can take up to 20-21 days to pop out. For me, I'll generally see something within 5 to 7 days, but it can easily be 10, 15 to 21 days before you'll see a pepper or an eggplant germinate. After that, if you haven't seen it and you've given it optimal conditions, you might want to start again. But starting 10 weeks in advance gives you that time where you can say, okay, peppers and eggplants don't need to go out until, maybe the 3rd week in May in this zone. So there should be plenty of time to start some more. The hotter, the better. They really like the hot weather. These things are kind of like semi-tropical. So that's something for you to think about as well. So anyway, you guys, I think I may have covered everything, except there's one honorable mention for you that I'm not growing this year. If you're looking for a hot pepper that is colorful, yellow, and maybe you've been one of the lucky recipients that has received the free Datil pepper from Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds in your seed holes, but maybe you didn't grow it, maybe you didn't know what to expect, maybe it was put out to too many people and it became oversaturated and you were afraid to grow it. Let me tell you, one seed and it will grow one pepper shrub, basically, which could probably easily become a pepper tree in the right southern type exposure. Oh my goodness. I'll attach the video for you. I grew 3 of them last year. It was absolute pepper pandemonium. We had, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of peppers, it seemed. I was giving them away by huge containerfuls. And my neighbor next door was able to share it with the temple that she goes to, because they love hot, spicy food there. I kept a small bag full and I served John a few in some meals. I didn't even want to touch them. They were so hot, but they grew so well. So if you have the Datil pepper seed and you haven't tried it yet, I highly recommend it. One plant goes a long way. It does need staking and caging, so be ready for that. It did well without shade cloth, and it was disease resistant. It gave me no problems. The only real problem I had with it was that it produced massive amounts of peppers. But from what I hear, there is a hot pepper sauce that is served through a majority of the state of Florida, and I heard that pepper sauce is made from the Datil pepper. So you may want to look into that. That is the only one that I'm not growing this year that I grew last year. So anyway, you guys, let me let you go now. Again, if you have any questions, post them below. We'll get back to you soon. So here's to growing peppers and eggplants in 2025, you guys. See you in the next video.